Greetings, Neuse Little Pod listeners. This is your host, Matt Gore, reminding you to please like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast on your available podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and any other podcast app you can think of. Share our episodes on Facebook and let us know what you think with a comment or review. Now, please enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theater and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. Good evening, Neuse Little Podcast listeners. We have a show for you this evening with two wonderful actors who have been involved with theater in our neck of the woods since 2009, maybe even before that, 2008. Along with NLT, they are also active with theater in Raleigh and the surrounding areas. Please welcome to the show father and daughter, Randy and Abigail Jordan.
Hello there, and great to be with you. Thanks for the invitation to do the Neuse Little Theater podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming down and doing the podcast with us this evening. Now, I'm going to drive right in since we have two guests here, and we don't want to dawdle on this one. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, I have to get this out of the way. I know you've done actual professional radio, so I'm sure you have some advice you could give me on doing the podcast. Have you listened to any of the other episodes?
I have listened to a few of the episodes, yeah.
If you had one tip to give me, what would it be? I always want to try to improve myself, and I know I'm not a professional at this. And yes, I know I say maybe too much.
No, I think you do a very good job, and I think that the questions are good. Your responses to what people share are very good. Occasionally, when I've heard one, I thought you might work the microphone just a little bit closer, just to give you the personal presence that us radio types really like to have. And but outside of that, no, I think you're doing a great job. And I particularly thought it was wonderful that you started with, kind of the embryonic folks.
The original people.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to I don't want to stop that entirely. I'm still trying to contact them, but unfortunately, most of them are either no longer with us or live in a different state.
Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to filter them in as well. There's a few on this list that I still want to get in there.
Yeah, I did not listen to Ruth Mills, but I certainly owe her a debt of gratitude for the many shows she did, but particularly the first show I ever did, after a 35-year hiatus for theater, was The Man Who Came to Dinner with her, I think in 2007 or 2008. And she took a risk, and I played Dr. Bailey. Of course, I wanted to do Whiteside as a radio guy. Would still love to do that part sometime.
Darius Rose plays that part, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did. And did a fine job. Every now and then skipped a page of dialogue, but he did very well.
Well, no one bats 1,000.
But at any rate, I had a great time doing Dr. Bailey because it was a part where I could stand over here stage right and just stick my head through a door and get a laugh without a line, doing very little. And I got to do that several times. And of course, I had a great time working with Darius and the lovely Teresa, and a great cast. Sammy was in that, so we had a great time with it. And I thank Ruth for taking the risk. She was always good at inviting new people. Yeah. I think it's one of the great things about working here is that a lot of community theater can be closed off, but Neuse Little Theater is. Although it's got its niche of people, there's always been room for new faces and new talent to, spread their wings and give it a whirl.
I'll never forget with that show. I think you guys came close to giving the cameo award that year to the Penguin on the on the race car, like how to make those penguins happen. And got one strapped to a remote control car.
That was one show before me, so I don't have a point of reference for that. Mita was kind of looking. I was just like,
there's penguins in the show, and they're supposed to run across the stage at the end of Act 1, And I figured out a way to hook a nice penguin up to a remote control car.
Interesting.
And we sent him running across the stage.
Interesting. So from that, we have Abigail's introduction to NLT, and that was 2009's Lend Me a Tenor by
Yes.
Ken Ludwig, directed by Stephanie Varon, yes.
Yeah. That was a great experience. I mean, that's where we became friends. That was it was my first time in a lead role since probably high school or something. It was and it was a riot. That show was just fun and zany. Well, yeah, you're already laughing. It's the one and only time I've had to throw myself at my father on stage. The conversation would be remiss without mentioning
Your
that.
character, or your character, and Randy was also in this show, and he played Tita Morelli. Your character was a big fan of Tita Morelli, and just
Yes.
wanted to express how much she was a fan of her in one rather brief moment in
Yes.
the second act,
Yes.
before somebody burst in, as they're wont to do in that show.
That was,
Yes.
The club meets on Thursday.
Yes,
Survivors Club.
this happens to our own Meet Toole as well. There's a club that meets every Thursday. She said.
It was that was a fun show. Ken Ludwig does great comedic stuff, and I certainly enjoyed playing Tito again with the great Teresa as my wife. Got to chase some other girls, but that was
Yeah, Rhonda.
that was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, and then of course you and I got to sing opera together.
That was very fun and something I didn't think I was actually going to do. Moving on from that, now we've talked a little bit about Amherst Ambassador, and we were all in that show. Meeta was AD of that show, and Craig Baker actually directed that show. That was
Yeah.
his one show as a director. And I wanted to get into that just a little bit. Let's talk about Craig's style as a director. What did he bring to it? And preface that by saying I don't think any director who directs their very first show has an established style yet. They're all learning, as every director learns with every single show. They've done 1 or 50. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, what I think what Craig brought mostly was an incredible sense of humor
Yeah.
and what's funny and what's not.
And freedom.
And,
like he wanted
yeah.
you to find the funny, and he would help you if you couldn't find it. But he
Yeah.
also gave us a lot of latitude.
Yeah.
He did. He gave me personally a lot of freedom. I don't know what he said to you guys, but he said to me several times, "Just go with it as long as it's funny."
Yeah.
And I felt now even at the time, I felt it was funny enough, and I didn't need to add too much. I think I added one like bloody hell or something like that. It's funny enough as it is, but at the same time, I really appreciated Craig let me off the leash a little bit and trusting me.
Yeah. That show lends itself to, I won't call it exactly slapstick, but it's on the edge. It's the situations, the being stuck to a woman's various parts and and those kind of things lend themselves.
Well, we talked about Mary Lee's side of things. Let's talk about Abby's side of things that we did not really get into.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a great humor piece. I know I have pictures on Facebook, and just both of our faces, the look of shock when that happens to the characters, and then having to take various wardrobe off on stage to get unstuck.
Right.
It was the audience loved it every night. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and just for clarity's sake, for those who may not be aware, Matt's hand was stuck to her bum.
Yes, it was a inadvertent accident. Glue or something
Yes.
had gotten stuck to my hand.
The super duper glue.
You
Yes.
you have never had as good a part as that one.
No. No, when I first read it, I'm like, this is better than Hamlet. You don't even understand.
Yeah, your face buried in Mary Lee, who
Yeah.
is absolutely beautiful, and then
Yeah.
your hand on the bum of Abby.
It was damn hard, I tell you, but I do what I can for the group.
for
The
the art.
sacrifices you make for your
Yes,
art.
yes.
For the art,
But
yeah.
no, as long as I live, I'll never get a part as fun, quite as fun as that one.
Well,
Well,
and I got to roll around in the sack and do costume changes under
With Janet.
covers with Janet. That
Janet
was-
Osborne, yes, indeed.
That
That's a
show
great
was
show.
just so much fun. One of the things, again, Craig really fostered a congenial atmosphere. You know, I think we all bonded as a cast. I have so many friendships that were either born out of that show or strengthened through that show.
Aaron Young.
Mary Lee and I, that's where we really became very dear friends, and she is still one of my very close friends. And Aaron Young coming down, he was such a good sport about that, and his pratfalls every night. And watching Sean and, you know, his antics get bigger with every performance. I don't know, I had so much fun, and any chance, if I am working with another theater who's looking for comedic material, I always tell them about this show. I'm like, I know it's not that well known, but I'm telling you, the audience will love it, and your cast will love it. It is just near and dear to my heart.
And
I'm so glad I had that experience.
Yeah, I think we all do. That was a really special show for me and for everybody involved, like you just said. But also, it's not hard to pull off. This is not an especially expensive show.
No.
There's some costumes, but there's nothing really that expensive.
It's props heavy.
But nothing that you can't find in the back of the
Right.
the theater that's been there forever or something like that. Or
Right.
you just, you know, quick Amazon Prime order. But also there's a prequel. I don't think it's a sequel. It's called The
Really?
Sensuous Senator.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I hope one day we can do that here.
that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But
And,
you had quite the 2012-2013 season. That
Yeah. So that show was right in the middle of it, pretty much. But 2012-2013, I was involved in some way or fashion with every show. I did makeup for Ordinary People, doing scar tissue and whatnot for Austin and that show. Amherst Ambassador, props for Nonsense, more makeup for Rabbit Hole, which that show was, I know I was only on the edges of it, but again.
Yeah, we covered that in one of our episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Me and Mia talked about that. That was actually our season preview where we talked one-on-one.
Yeah. And then Mitford, Welcome to Mitford, which my dad was in. I was also assistant directing with Stephanie, and that was a learning experience for me, and also a lot of fun to see some of my input come to life on stage.
Right.
It was neat. It was a good experience. So I guess one of these days I'll have to take the next step and actually start directing for you.
I always thought you would eventually do that.
Eventually.
That seemed logical to me.
Yeah, right now I'm enjoying the stage, but yeah, eventually directing. But yeah, so that was a full season for me, and then immediately after that, I had to take a break because I went to school, and so it was really nice to I guess, dive all in that season and get my fill of theater before I had to take that break. I missed you guys.
They always come back eventually. If they don't have children, die or retire.
Right.
2012, I think, was a year of the Crucible that Mita here directed. That was a lot of fun. Danforth for me was an exquisite role. Got to
You were great, Danforth.
I had great fun with that. The monologues and the blind stupidity of the man was wonderful, and I got to drag Aaron Young and another young man up, and that was fun to watch them. I'd done Man Who Came to Dinner at RLT with them and talked them into coming up here, and it was a great experience to have Aaron and those guys go.
Well, we had covered Crucible on the show before, but Danforth is one of those other fun. It's a fun character to play. I played him years later down there at CST, but his speeches and stuff where he's like, this guy is on the verge of being proud of his stupidity, and it's really heartbreaking. It has many parallels to today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You mentioned bringing Aaron, getting him to come down for those auditions. That's the other thing I was going to say is you guys, kind of going back to something we said earlier about this theater being so welcoming to new talent and stuff like that. I know whenever I work and other theaters that, and people are like, oh, well, I've only ever worked in this one place, especially if they live in a decent driving distance. I'm like, you really ought to go down to Smithfield. It's a fantastic theater. It's super comfy. They're really welcoming. I know that one of the actors in Almost Maine this past spring was a friend of mine from another theater in Clayton, and he came down. I think Shannon Plummer White, when she came down for, I can't remember, another show that I did makeup for.
Was it Bloom?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
I
Bloom. Yes. So I mean, like, I'm always telling people, please come on down.
Yeah. The Neuse Little Theater, I think we've both said this openly before. I know I have at the Canon Awards and stuff that, this is home for us. I
Yeah.
mean, we live in Fuquay and we haven't done something here in a while, but this is home for us. I've done 12 shows here, counting Henry IV, if you count that.
Yeah, the reading. We can talk briefly about that. We've never really talked about that. That was a great little event, the 24-hour Play Fest.
Yeah.
And Neuse Little, that's when every theater group, even if you were half a theater group, even if had a bunch of people who said they were a theater group, they would assign you a Shakespeare play, and you could do a stage reading, and it was going over 24 hours of all of Shakespeare. I don't know how.
Celebrating his birthday.
What? Yeah, it was like 5 days. I was about to say it wouldn't work out with one day, but
that was a wonderful experience, and I was particularly, I'll just say, first of all, I was kind of complimenting the theater here in terms of we call it home, though we've done a lot of stuff at some of the Raleigh venues as well, but this place is special. I mean, the people are special because there are no airs here. It's people are people. And then the other thing is, what is it, 105?
106, yeah.
106 seat intimacy that you just can't get every place, I mean, it's just wonderful to connect with the audience here. Direction is good, working with Pender the times I have. I mean, it's up close and personal direction, and it's up close and personal audience, and it's just great. And I was just going to say, in terms of the Shakespeare thing, I was particularly proud of what Neuse Little Theater did as kind of the small town, out of town community theater in that situation. But the fact that we had really good readings and blocked it, and the black and white costume thing worked out well. I just thought, compared to some who just sat up there and read, and that's not to slam anyone else, it's just I was really proud of
some groups took it more in depth
effort.
than others. Yeah. So some groups took it more seriously than others. Yeah. And I was too. We did Henry IV, where you played
Falstaff.
Henry IV Part 1, I should say.
Yes.
And you played Falstaff, and Tony Pender played
Prince
Prince Hal. Yes, indeed. Moving on, this is one play that we probably should have talked about before now, but we just haven't because there are so many plays to choose from to talk about at Neuse Little Theater. But this has a special community connection, this play, because the movie, I forget which year, directed by John Huston, starring Richard Burton, Ava Gardner, who was born just down the road. I know it's not quite Smithfield, but it's just Broadslab, there you go. And so we have the Ava Gardner Museum downtown. That's a big tourist attraction. And we're just kind of proud of that Ava Gardner is from this neck of the woods. And so finally they decided to do Tennessee Williams' Night of the Iguana here at the Hut. 1964. And so that play is challenging.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say, Randy?
It is. It's Williams' work is always challenging. That play is particularly challenging, I think, because it's people trying to find their way, and they come from very different places, to learn about one another. I had a great time as Nano, the grandfather figure, and I had a great time particularly working a monologue with a great director who is able to draw things out of you. That was Tony Pender who directed that, and it was an interesting show. We had a good cast. We had a lot of line difficulties, even going into the tech week, rehearsals. But
Stephanie Holloman played the Ava Gardner role. Stephen Carl played the Richard Burton role as the preacher, the broken preacher who is trying to escape his past by leading this group of women through the jungle on this phony Mexican tour. Yeah, and somehow they end up at this spot. This, what would you call it? Hacienda.
Yeah.
And there's other broken people there, and they all drink and be broken together. And but I guess what I mean in the way of difficult, it's not as accessible as say a Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or Streetcar Named Desire or even Glass Menagerie. So you have to work at it just a little bit more. I'm like the main character is pretty reprehensible.
Well, I think that the Night of the Iguana again is I think it's different than some Williams plays, and again that as I understand, he had an interesting relationship with a grandfather who was a man of the cloth, and if you look at his plays, you can see his relationship with his mother, his relationship with his sister, his relationship with his father. You can. He kind of writes, I think, from some of those inspirations. And this one, I think he was trying to, in some ways, I think he was trying to deal with that part of his life that had that, if you will, religious underpinning and the struggle of it all with where he was at. And so that comes out, some in the writing and in these characters. And let's face it, all people are flawed. And there are lots of flawed people in Night of the Iguana. Right. And I enjoyed doing that show a lot. But the my character was perfect. He's a great old man. He's a poet. Well, the wonderful thing about community theater, obviously you have some limitations sometimes in space and budget and those kind of things. But the wonderful thing about it is that, particularly from the director's point of view, and I know you're well acquainted with this, is you never know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates, because you're going to work with some people who have never been on stage before, and they're doing this because they think, oh, this looks like fun. And then you're going to run into people, I slap myself on the back, and you're going to run into people who've done quite a bit of it, and they do it because they love the art, and they love the opportunity to communicate and, see what a play's saying and get there and look at what the characters are, how to build them and that kind of thing. It doesn't make that guy, by the way, any better than the guy who's doing his first show. But as a director, you're juggling those balls. You're juggling people who are here to have fun, and you're juggling the other balls that are, it's about the art, Yeah. And I don't mean to sound like a snob, but I'm just saying you're trying to meld that together. And
there is a happy medium, is what you're saying.
And it can work. It can work. And hopefully the people who came in to have fun, sooner or later get to the place where they say, oh, this art's pretty cool too. Yeah. And I've had a lot of great experiences. First play you directed in here was Wait Until.
Yeah, that was the second one I ever did.
Well, no, but I'm saying for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Was Wait Until Dark. And we had an interesting cast, and in the beginning I thought, I don't know if this is going to work, but as we worked through it, I thought it came out wonderful. Yep. Great production.
Wait Until Dark is still on the top end of, I would rate it near the top of the shows I've directed, just because of what you said of how it ultimately came out. It was a smooth production.
Yeah, and I think you took actors places that initially we just said, I don't know whether they can get there, but you got them there. And that's what good direction does. It keeps digging at it until the collaborative nature of the thing comes together, and you go, wow.
Well, how do you find a balance? You say you approach it in an interesting way. Bill's a mechanic, and he thinks community theater will be fun, and he auditions for a part, and he gets a part. but you need him to go places. How are you gonna talk to Bill, who's not used to going to those places?
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, I generally sit down when I'm casting a show. I give a little speech at the beginning that says, here's what this is about. We're trying to say something, and I try to, make people think about the nature of the art, and I tell people not to take roles that are too big for them. Because if you haven't got time to learn 1,000 lines, then please don't take a role with 1,000 lines, even if I offer it to you, because you're going to be unhappy, and you're going to make everybody else unhappy sooner or later.
You said it.
And so I say that, and so that's kind of my approach. But I do like to try to find new talent and bring them along. And generally, I find it's a matter of sitting down with them and saying, hey, this is fun. We are going to have fun, but we're also going to say something. And that's true whether it's a light piece or a dramatic piece, but particularly with dramatic pieces that have some weight. It's the wonderful thing about community theater, again, is you're taking all these pieces that, it's a jigsaw puzzle, but the pieces are not cut quite right, and you're trying to, force this one in until, oh, there it is, it's finally in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a bad analogy, but
I see what you're saying. It's like
I can see Mita smiling, so I know it fits.
No, I was just picturing in my head Jones Hope Wooten sitting down to write, Texas Anarchy Part 4, and we're like, what are we trying to say with this piece? What are we trying to say with Texas Trailer Park Part 4 that we didn't say with Texas Trailer Park Part 3? I'm just trying to put my mind around. No, but you're totally right. The one we're all trying to get together and say something.
Yeah.
It isn't just about the shiggles, as it were.
Yeah.
Now you, Abby. Now let's ask you about this. Spitfire Grill was a big one for you, and I don't know much about them, so you're going to have to kind of set that one up for me.
Well, our wonderful Mita directed that show, and it's an intimate musical. There's so many people, they hear musical theater and they think to put it in modern parlance, schmigadoon, song and dance numbers and chorus and 30 people in the cast and et cetera, and Spitfire Grill, there were 5 of us, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
6, yeah.
I think 6.
So tiny cast, and so we gelled really well. I mean,
who else was in it?
Okay. Let's see here. Joyce played the diner owner, and Alan Williford played my husband. Hannah Long was the lead character, who is a girl who's just gotten out of prison and is looking for a fresh start. I just play a citizen who befriends her when she comes to this new town looking for that fresh start. Oh my gosh, I'm
Nick
totally
Williams.
blanking. What?
Nick Williams
Nick,
played the
thank you.
sheriff.
Yes, Nick played the sheriff. Stephen actually made an appearance on stage.
I told him he couldn't shave or cut his hair because he had to look like he was lived in the woods,
Yeah.
a homeless guy. He looked like Grizzly Adams.
It was so great. It was so great. So, it was really nice to do a smaller piece of musical theater that had a lot to say about fresh starts and about maybe the fronts that people put up and then getting past that to know them more genuinely. It was a special piece of theater, I think, and not done often enough.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it.
It's actually based on a movie, right? Or did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a straight film. It's not a musical.
Right,
The film's not. But yeah, it's based on that. It has a little bit of a different ending. But yeah,
it's very joyous ending for us.
It's a happy ending in the musical.
Yeah.
But it's she comes because she's had a horrible life, and she's saw a picture in a magazine of the fall colors, and that's what she came to see. And so it's sort of winning people over because they all are very suspicious of why she's there, and but that giving people second chances, learning to like yourself, finding your purpose, that's sort of what the story is about. Yeah.
Not gonna lie, from an actor perspective, I was definitely jealous of Hannah when she got that role, but I ended up really enjoying my part. I played Shelby, her friend.
How do you approach a big role like that? How do you approach a role like that? I know you recently did Steel Magnolias, and you did Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah.
Whatever her name is.
Truvy.
Truvy, there you go.
Yeah.
So how do you approach a role like that?
I don't know. I try to find, I guess, parts of myself, parts that I can relate to, right? I wish I could remember who it was that I read recently. It was someone who played a villain, and they were like, you have to approach everything from empathy, you know, to ground the character. And then you also have to take yourself out of it.
So Randy, when you're directing Diary of Anne Frank, when the Nazis come to get him, right, you're going to tell the guy who plays the Nazi, just approach it with empathy, okay? That's what you got to do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, then you have to take yourself out of it, you know.
I'm just kidding.
For the parts that you can't relate to, you have to take yourself, you know, this is not an action I would take, this is not a line I would say, but how can I find why this person would do that, right. You know? Yeah, that's, I mean, I think you have to find the parts that you relate to, and then you know, act the parts that you don't. Like,
right.
That's, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's called that. That's why it's called acting.
I mean, I very much am a come from my own emotion. Like when it comes to doing something emotional on stage for me, I'm not someone who can reach back to my memories and, you know, find the time that my dog died and touch into that. Like I have to put myself in the part of the person that I'm playing. So you asked about when he directed, you know, I did Crime to the Heart with my dad, and my character got very emotional. And she has a monologue about how no one's ever gonna want her, no one's ever gonna marry her, you know, that kind of thing. And to be frank, you know, with myself, I was very mean. I had to go in every night and tell myself those lies to get myself emotionally to the point of what she was feeling. That's just the way that, and it worked. I mean, it put me to tears every night, but it was work. It was work.
You have to get in the right headspace.
Yeah.
But I brought it up with Tony. Even when you're quote unquote the bad guy, you have to take it, you have to come at it like nobody thinks they're the bad guy of their story.
Right.
So you have to come at it from that perspective. And yes, I mean, sometimes it can put you in a really weird headspace, but you never come at it like, I'm going to be the big bad guy, because that's not how they not how they see their life.
No. They think they're totally justified or righteous in whatever it is that they're.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's my look or what, but I have you know, 3 different times in recent years had to play really vile racist roles. And one of them, I mean,
It hurt his heart.
It hurt my heart.
Okay, that's interesting.
To have to do it. I mean, it just what I had to say, what I had to do, just I'd go home at night and go, oh God, I'm just worn out and I can't sleep because I'm going to think about this crap.
That's interesting.
You know?
I want you to take me through that, if you can, in whatever way you're comfortable. When you get a role like that, what role was it? What role is it that tore you up so bad?
Well, that role was Robert Toole in Blood Done Sign My Name.
Okay, so take us through that.
Based on a true life.
Emmett Till? Was it the story of Emmett Till?
Murder.
No.
Not Emmett Till, I'm sorry.
No, not Emmett Till.
But a murder in Oxford, Henderson area. And it's, and they essentially got away with it, got let off, Till got let off. But at any rate, no, for me, the thing is again, I've said before, Matt, that I love the art and I love the communication of the art, what it's saying. And that's where I have to go with those parts. I have to go with, this has to be said, somebody's got to say it. I have the skill set, I have the look, I have the, you know, the emotion to go there. I have the temperament to play that kind of vile hatred and make it be believable. And I'm not saying that to my credit, I'm just saying that's where I have to go. I have to go with, it's still acting, you know, but it can hurt your heart to go those places, because it's not who you are, and yet you, for an hour and a half, that is who you. And
when he's saying it has to be said, what he means by that is he's holding up a mirror to society. Like, he's not saying he has to say it. He's saying that this piece needs to be said. It needs to be seen.
Yeah. That's my pills.
And the other thing is, I will say, thank goodness he has enough people around him in this community here in Raleigh, et cetera, that know my dad and know that when he gets cast with those roles, it's not because he is that person.
Right, because I was going to say, the downside of it is that when you're really good at it, that's the way people see you on that stage.
Right.
And that can be very disheartening, because then that's what people know. I mean, not the people in your cast, not the people you've worked with in the past or the future, but the people in the audience. That's, if you do your job right, they're going to hate you. They see that person and they don't like you.
Yeah. I would walk down the sidewalk afterwards, you know, out of the theater, and people would walk by and go, "Oh, we really hated you."
Or they couldn't even make eye contact.
Yeah, or they couldn't look at me. And if they said we really hated you, I'd say, well, then I did what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You should hate me.
I got a taste of that when we did To Kill a Mockingbird. I played Mayla.
Yeah.
And I got a taste of it when we did Cabaret, because we sing a song right when sort of the mood changes in the show. They're at the party and they sing the song in camaraderie or the song where they all basically join the Nazi party or whatever, and the audience never clapped. We got finished with the song and you could hear crickets, which you knew you did a good job with, but it's definitely very unnerving.
I would, in Blood Doesn't Sign My Name, I got to a place where I would say, kill and the auditorium would go deadly silent for the shock of it. And I guess what I'd say, Matt, for me, it's as the actor, it's getting to the emotion to show that vile, dark side of where man can go with, you know, wrong thinking, I guess I'd say, but you know, unfortunately, and I don't want to get too much into method and all that, but it's just, unfortunately, I had a kind of childhood that was out of that, not racism, but out of some vile, you know, areas because of alcoholism and anger and temperament and stuff that I experienced as a child. So I can draw that. My own temperament has to be, I have to be controlled. You know, because it's easy for me to really show anger in an ugly way. And so it's down there. It's a matter of reaching it and turning it into this character, if that makes sense.
Channeling it, yeah.
The difference between acting and insanity is
not being able to put it back.
Yeah, I mean, Lee J. Cobb and others said, well, he really became Willie Loman. No, he went insane. You know, because there's a difference between you know, taking on the character and drawing on the emotion and getting there, and then becoming that guy. Becoming that guy's insane, you know. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Death of a Salesman then, because we touched on it in other episodes. We've covered the roundabout thing that we credited you with coming up with that. We have talked about that several times. We've talked about Mike's performance because we had Mike McGee in here. And we talked about try to approach it from your director, a standpoint of just pure, like, what was your vision for the show as you set out to direct the show?
Well, my first thing would be to say that I think that I think it's the greatest American play ever. When I was first asked if I'd be interested in directing it, I told Meade, I said, well, gee, I might like to just try my luck at seeing if I could be Willie and act it, you know, because I don't know whether I want to take that on as a first directing gig here.
Can I get like a Neil Simon?
You know, but I think that Miller is a great. I think most of his plays deal with living lies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think The Crucible is about living lies. I think that
All My Sons especially
is about living lies,
Yes.
and I think that Death of a Salesman is about living lies. He's just got a thing for how people live lies, and so that was my basic approach, and I knew that the house had to be an integral part. There are two problems with the play for a director, I think, initially. The house has to take on a character. And then the other thing is you got to be in about 5 other places besides the house, but the action can never stop because it's in his mind. So you can never have a blackout. You can never have, a scene change. You just can't stop. And so I had to figure that out, and that, at least for me on this stage with its smaller dimensions, meant we needed to do a rotator. I remember talking to Tony about that initially, and he said, no, you don't want to do that. And
I remember telling you, I was like, we don't have good experiences with rotators, Randy. No.
And then I talked to Steven, and he said, oh, you don't do that. But anyway, we did it, and it worked
And
great.
then he had a backup plan. He said, oh, we can do this. And I was like, let's revisit the rotator.
and we did.
Excellent negotiating.
And we did. The other interesting thing we did, I think, for the first time in my experience at Neuse was we did not do a box set. We essentially opened up the back, clear to the windows, and we used spaces that hadn't been spaced and let you see them. And anyway, so that was all part of trying to make the house and the close in of the closeness of the city and the neighbors and everything, try to be a part of the plot. I was blessed initially when Mita knows this, and I don't know that any others do. It's most interesting casting experience I've ever had because of snow and ice, and then more snow and ice, and then wetness and other problems. And I finally got the thing cast, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be something because, we really, because of snow and ice, we just didn't get people out.
We barely had it cast.
Yeah.
Because we were dragging people in to audition.
Because it was bad weather during auditions, and then we rescheduled them, and there was more bad weather. And Death of a Salesman, it's a hard play to do, and I think we had struggled when it came to had people come out. Thank God Mike came out, but
Well, we ended up with Mike. Mike was not. I wanted a big guy like you and me to do Willie, because that's the way I saw him. I'd seen Hoffman do him as a diminutive guy, but I wanted a big guy.
Right.
And
because you like Lee James Cobb's portrayal.
Lee J. Cobb and Hoffman, the other Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah. And that's the way I pictured him. I pictured him like me.
Right.
But at any rate, that's where we're going. And then we ended up casting a couple of people, and they ended up dropping out. And I lost my Biff with 3 weeks out. I lost my Happy with 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
And oh my God, did I get blessed?
Yes, you did. Jonathan and Gus.
I called Gus Allen, Jonathan King, and they happened to be available. And I would have been happy to work with what we had, but I got really blessed because those guys took on those brothers, and between them and Mike, I just think we ended up with a, it sounds fat-headed, but I just think we ended up with a stellar production of
Gwen also gave, I truly feel Gwen gave a great performance,
Oh,
too.
yes.
And I don't want to leave her out.
Yeah. The guy who played Willie's, boss was okay, too.
I had one scene,
Tolerable.
I was okay.
Yeah, but it was. We just got so blessed with a great cast for leads.
I thought also Wayne Bertolf was particularly good in that.
Yeah.
Karen is the woman. Karen.
And Stephanie, Stephanie and Janet as our ladies of the evening in the diner scene.
Yeah, and Mr. Anderson did a great job as well as the as the neighbor, the card-playing neighbor.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mark Anderson. Yes, yes.
And we just got really blessed, I think, for pulling off a very nice production, given all the difficulties we had with casting particularly.
Well, and you wouldn't have known it. I mean, I don't think the audience knew the chaos that was putting that show on our stage.
And doing the rotator and the multimedia, you know.
And let me just say, when you say the chaos of putting that show on, I've been in chaos shows since then. That was relatively mild. Oh, we had just in LT had a good run of things going smoothly, and then the weather and casting affected this show. Like, oh, this one's been hard. It's like, well, relatively to the others, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't an especially crazy ride.
No, looking back on it, it was not hard. I mean, it was probably not the worst chaos that I've been involved with, but when you're living it, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for me, because it was Death of a Salesman, and you know, I mean, you don't want to train wreck that.
No.
You know.
Yeah, he definitely felt a pressure with that.
But
Right.
you know, the wonderful thing about Miller's writing is that the characters are so deep, even the small ones, and there's often more exposition about character. If you ever do a Miller play, you know, there's often more exposition in what other characters say about your character, other places, you know, than there is just in your dialogue alone. So you have to watch for it. You have to look for it. I'm sure you find that with the Crucible as well. I mean, you know, Francis Nurse says something about Proctor, and it's 49 pages and away from Proctor, but it reveals a lot about him.
Right.
And, you know, it's just, it's the way he writes. And it makes me wonder, does he know he's doing that? You know, he probably does.
He probably did. He was one of our great. I'll never forget when I did a different version of the Crucible. I'll never forget in the program at the theater they listed from the writer of A View with a Room. I'm just like, you putting like his fourth known play there. That one play he did near the end of his career, I was just like, he wrote Death of a Salesman and All My Sons. I'm like, surely we can throw Death of a Salesman up there.
Marilyn Monroe's ex-husband.
Yes, and somehow that happened. Indeed.
Yeah, there were words.
Well, Daniel Day-Lewis was a protege, so there you go.
Yes. And now he makes shoes.
Anyway, and I know you're about out of time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say how grateful I was to do Scrooge in 1940s.
Yes.
Radio Christmas Carol, our Radio Christmas Hour. Wonderful part because it just plumbs the depths of every human emotion and takes the audience from screaming laughter to, oh my God.
And that you brought that, and with your breakdown, set us up. You play an actor who plays Scrooge on a radio show.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, the night he does Scrooge, he gets word that his son dies in World War II, and kind of has a breakdown on air.
Yeah, he has a breakdown as he's doing.
Abby was in this as well. What was your part, Abby?
I played Sally. I was a special effects artist.
Yes, you were helping out Greg with the Foley stuff.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Lots of fun.
I have to say, Ruth, I was thankful she saw comedy that I didn't know I was capable of. So that was a lot of, it was an adventure for me.
Yeah.
So.
Fun play, and lots of laughs, you know, with Reggie and you, and just lots of good comedic skills on stage, and you know, I'm not sure we did all the music that justice it should have been given, but the play itself, I think we did good justice.
Tell us how you feel about Newark.
You know, but in our defense about that music, I still swear to this day that score was written by like a PhD music student who was trying to show off.
Yeah.
Like there were harmonies in that I have never hadn't seen before and hadn't seen since, and that's 12 years of music experience from junior high through college.
Yeah.
Like that was an insane score.
Yeah.
I winged it and hoped for the best.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did. We had the opportunity to do it a year later in another place, and the music came out much better, but I'm not sure the play came out any better. Okay, if
I mean, I wasn't
that's
singing,
a fair
so that
thing.
helped.
I mean, I think we did as great a job with making the characters and that story of Scrooge in a wartime era stand up as could be done. It was just so much fun.
Yeah,
and you know, I won a cannon.
Yes, that was nice too. Overdue. That was your canon winning performance, and mainly probably for the breakdown scene, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Your Greg's monologue and your breakdown scenes are two beautiful moments from that
Well,
show.
when Sammy Smith walks up to you afterward and goes, "Oh my God, that was wonderful," something like that. You know, then you know you've done something that moved me or whatever. You know, because the guy's seen a lot of theater.
Indeed. A compliment from Sammy is worth 2 regular compliments from normal people.
There you go. There you go.
Well, so you got anything interesting coming up for us?
Well, as you know, I'm scheduled to direct the Diary of Anne Frank out at Forest Moon in Wake Forest. Coming up, it'll go up next March. It was supposed to go up this June, but the pandemic has put all theater on hiatus. So I'm looking forward to do that. Had an opportunity to do that show here with Tony Pender directing. So it will be...
You played Mr. Van Dam.
I did. And another place where you go to the depth of emotion with a character, and just had a great time doing that here with Tony. I have not worked with young people, you know, with kids much.
Okay.
So that'll be the challenge for me, to be nice enough to work with. You can't yell at them.
Well, you can't make them cry.
So, you know, that's. But I'm looking for that, and I'd like to. I haven't done any acting in a while, and I need to probably, you know, get back at it again. I'm getting old and I don't move as well as I used to, so, you know, dancing is out.
It'll happen to all of us, my friend, if we live long enough.
Yeah.
What about you, Abby? You got anything interesting coming up?
Auditions. So I will be here, you know, for the auditions and backstage again. You know me, props, makeup, running light board, whatever you need. I love this place.
And we're probably going to need it.
Well, yes.
I don't think that there's a backstage, outside of stage managing, God bless Steven, I don't think that there's a backstage position that costuming. I have not done costuming. But I have helped out in almost every other capacity.
Well, we hope you break a leg if you get cast, and we hope you'll come back and audition for our shows this season. We've got an eclectic mix, you know, and honestly, it's good catching up with you guys. I haven't seen you guys in a couple of years, and it's nice, and it's just nice. I appreciate you guys coming down on semi-short notice.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to put an opinion there, ladies and gentlemen. Until the next episode of Neuse Little Podcast, we'll see you later. Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Mita Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. You know, easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice. That Cody Walker. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.